Hello and welcome to the Plant Paradigm Podcast, where we have exciting conversations with incredible individuals from all around the world and look for ways to create clean, green, and sustainable changes so that we can better help our future and all the people and inhabitants and beautiful creatures that live among it. Today we are doing the monthly paradigm, which is a deep dive on all things relevant to those discussions, furthering the conversation, and this is where I am joined by my beautiful co-host, Sharna Harrington.
Hello.
Hello indeed. I'm excited. I really enjoy these conversations. We've been told that it is quite an easy way to really understand and comprehend these really complex issues and topics.
What a compliment.
It is indeed a compliment. And sometimes we just need to learn to talk slowly. I definitely need to work on that a bit more. But there is a lot going on this episode. There's going to be a very deep dive, and we've got some awesome stories to share.
You've done a bit of an investigative journalism, haven't you?
Indeed. I have uncovered something that I didn't know was a problem. And it turns out that it is something that will and is affecting millions, hundreds of millions, and in the future, billions of people.
I can't wait.
I know, neither can I. Can't wait to share. But on a personal note, we are doing something exciting tomorrow.
We are flying to Asia.
We are indeed.
So first stop is Bangkok. And then we're spending about 2.5 months away.
2.5 months traveling across a beautiful southeastern Asian continent.
Yep. The next monthly paradigm, I think, will be in Cambodia.
Yeah, which will be really exciting, or will be in Phuket or Cambodia, somewhere around the place, which is really awesome. So we're going to have to say goodbye to these heavy microphones, and we're going to try filming on little lapel mics. So hopefully the audio quality doesn't suffer.
I'm sure it'll be fine.
But I'm sure we'll also have learnt quite a bit on sustainable travel, and maybe even have some vegan tips in terms of what food is around in Thailand, Cambodia, and then Vietnam.
We're also going to be trying to do plastic-free July in Asia. So obviously we don't know what life is like in Asia anymore. So we don't know if it's even possible, but we're going to do our absolute best, as we do every day. But yeah, we're going to be taking part in plastic-free July. Can't wait.
I'm going to be expecting quite a lot of frustration, especially in Asia, where maybe I feel like the education isn't quite there, and plastics is still a common part of their everyday society and movements.
No different here. So yeah, we're going to try that to the best of our ability. But we've also purchased some things to help us along the way, haven't we? We bought tumblers, so like smoothie cups, so we can get our smoothie every day and not have to have a plastic takeaway cup and straw, because that would break my heart.
Every day.
But we do need to have our smoothies. We need to get our fruit intake. We need to have a good healthy breakfast for our travels or our work day.
100%. Because there was a discussion of, should we take the NutriBullet on this trip? And I'm like, I don't know. It's heavy. If we're not taking these microphones, we probably shouldn't take the NutriBullet. But we at least invested, I think it was like $15 or $16 each, these 500 milliliter tumblers, which will hopefully, we won't be using any plastic for any smoothie that we...
Nor coffee, nor water.
No. So we're doing, so far, I think we're pretty well prepared, but I'm sure there will be some mistakes along the way.
There'll be some hiccups, but we're going to try our best.
Absolutely.
As we do.
On the training part of things, I just want to talk about marathon training for a moment. So as a lot of you know, I stopped my squat world record attempt, and I don't know if I've even said on the show, but my new attempt and current goal is to do a sub 4-hour marathon, which means that I'll be running a pace of 5:27 for about 3 hours and 57 minutes, and that gives me about a 10-minute period of buffer. And so I'm learning how to train and eat, and part of that help that I'm getting is from Four Sigmatic. So I'm really stoked that they were helping out, and they sent me through some protein to help my recovery, and that protein is all organic, it's all vegan, and it's got some beautiful mushrooms in there, lion manes, ashwagandha, reishi, so I can increase my mushroom intake while increasing my protein, so I can just go on my runs and at least have some extra nutrition and adaptogens in my body that I feel like, I'm not sure on the science of all that, but I feel good.
And they are extra plant points.
Extra plant points. That is 110%.
And the discount code?
Oh, yes. If you guys wanted to get some Four Sigmatic to help with your mushroom points, you can enter code PLANT10 at checkout and get 10% off your purchase. Or just use the link in the show notes below, where I'll leave that linked up for anyone who's international, US, Europe, UK, does not matter.
Give it a go. Give it a try.
That's it. Are we ready to dive into some stories, Shan?
Yes, let's do it. So, my first headline of the day. A fertility expert has claimed that women trying to get pregnant should avoid a vegan diet and eat more meat. This said expert is... Should I name?
Yeah, name it. Let's go.
Oh, I don't know how to say her name.
Try. Let's do
Grace Dugdale.
Yep.
Dugdale. This expert is Grace Dugdale, who co-authored the fertility book. She is a reproductive biologist and nutrition scientist. According to Grace, vegans might lack vital nutrients such as zinc, iron, vitamin B12, and omega-3, as they don't eat meat. These vitamins and minerals are important to help a baby grow, and vegans need to play catch up if they've not been taking proper supplements. I think what she's forgetting is that anyone can lack those vital nutrients and minerals.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. It's frustrating because what she's saying is true. Vegans can lack all those things, and that's where it becomes dangerous.
Sure. Yes, but anyone can lack those. So yeah, that's the frustrating part. It's why are you targeting vegans in that? It's anybody that is trying to get pregnant should be getting zinc, iron, vitamin B12. We know this.
Did you dive into her, like, see if she's got a conflict of interest or anything like that?
I didn't.
Okay. I'd be curious to know.
I did do some further research and found that several studies, including a 2021 UK research, have shown that a healthy vegan diet may actually improve fertility.
That's what I'm aware of. And we've listened to podcasts like on The Proof, where they actually get fertility experts on. They talk about these issues.
Yes.
I don't see a problem.
No. So yeah, I'm not sure where her claims are coming from, but we can link these studies in the show notes.
Yeah.
One of the big reasons that plant-based diets naturally have less fat than a meat-heavy diet, and weight can obviously affect fertility.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons that a plant-based diet is good for fertility. And then there was a Harvard study published in an American Journal of Gynecology, also showed ovulatory infertility was 39% more likely in women who ate animal proteins compared to women eating plant-based protein foods like beans, nuts, and soy. The Academy of Nutrition and Diets has also stated in position on vegan diets, it's deemed it appropriate for all stages of life, including pregnancy, lactation, infancy, childhood, and adolescence. So I think from that, it's perfectly fine if it's a healthy diet, no matter what you're eating.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, we don't see people in the blue zones having problems with fertility.
No.
We don't see these. Yeah, it doesn't make too much sense. It almost seems like I want to make a headline that gets clicks kind of claim.
Well, especially seeing she's got a book out.
Yeah.
You wonder if it's, a bit like clickbaity.
Yeah. Oh, look, it's definitely a claim that seems like it has some studies to back it up. But I feel like if we were to take a zoom out, like, let's look at the studies that you mentioned, there's just no question that you can do it on a well-planned plant-based diet, and a poorly planned animal-based diet is just as harmful, if not more, than a poorly planned plant-based diet.
Absolutely.
Well, something else that's really shocking at the moment. So there's the G7 summit that's currently happening, or I think it's just concluded. And essentially a lot of nations in this G7 flow over, and it's part of like the NATO agreement and all that as well. And so they're talking about how to support Ukraine and a whole lot of other affairs as well. And there comes from that talk quite a sad announcement that they're given a green light to continue to offer finance for the exploration of fossil fuel reserves. So these huge nations are going to start financing more reserves. Now, this is bad. Obviously, we know that this isn't ideal, but it's bad specifically because the International Energy Agency has explicitly said that based on the current scientific research, if we want to stay under 1.5, it's critical not to proceed with new exploration. Now, the reason they want to do this, for us to understand what their reasoning is at all, is because countries such as Germany are in a very tight position with their back against the wall. They're almost out of all fossil fuel reserves, and their prices have just skyrocketed like no other time. So,
and how are their renewables, do you know?
Very limited. They were going to go strong with nuclear, but they stopped almost all their nuclear projects after the issue in Japan. So they've got their back against the wall. So they want to give this funding to developing nations, such as in the continent of Africa. Now, as a developing nation, you're not going to say, "Oh no, I'm not going to, accept this huge amount of money at all." So they've gone ahead and just accepted this money. Now, or are going to accept this funding. What is shocking about that, and what's really sad, is exploration takes years, 5 years at a minimum, to find a new gas plant. Now, in 5 years' time, there's not going to be a war in Ukraine. And now you have to start digging. So the big problem that a lot of German activists have with this particular issue is that if you invested that same amount of money into renewables, you would have energy quicker, cheaper, and renewable.
And cleaner.
And so much cleaner. And the money we're talking about here is $33 billion. So initially, the energy ministers actually said the taxpayers' money that we're going to take is no longer going to fund fossil fuels. So that decision was reversed. So that $33 billion was previously allocated towards only renewable energies. That's it. And so they've reversed that decision. So that $33 billion of taxpayer money is now going towards financing new fossil fuel explorations. So yeah, it's pretty sad.
And then once they extract all of the fossil fuels in 5 years' time, we're likely not going to purchase them because we will have hopefully renewables up and running by then.
Yeah, well, then they're just going to start extracting. So once they find this spot in 5 years' time, they're just going to use it for their own purposes, but they can then extract for maybe 20 or 30 years, and then they're just going to be left with no country wants to import that by then, especially if a lot of countries are hitting net zero by 2030, 2040, 2050. What are you going to do with all these stores of fossil fuels with nowhere to go? So that's a really good point.
What a horrible decision they've made.
Horrible decision. Really, really sad.
But how does that help the Ukraine in their war?
Well, it's just because Germany has nothing. And so they're using in my mind, they're using it as an excuse to explore new things so they don't have to rely on Russia.
Yeah.
Because Germany is currently, to my knowledge, still actually purchasing fossil fuels from Russia.
Yeah.
Because if they don't, their country will stop.
I think there's still a lot of European countries doing it. I think even the UK is doing it. Obviously, they're not happy about it. But once you've relied on it for so long, you can't just flip a switch and take it from somewhere else, which we know that Russia is, I think, the leading in exporting fossil fuels, aren't they?
Yep.
Maybe Australia is a second behind that. I don't know. But
we're the leading in exporting gas.
I thought it was coal. Anyway.
Yeah, I think we're one of them and Qatar's the other.
Yeah.
From my memory, but yeah, it's really sad. But that's my update on that story. So it's a bit of bad news, but I sort of sympathize with Germany, but I
But
just
plan
don't
better.
plan.
You're a huge developed country.
Yeah.
Plan better.
Yeah. So one of the recommendations from, I forgot the agency, and I did a post about this, was compulsory gas storage compartments. So having tons and tons of stored gas and fossil fuel reserves for situations like these and geopolitical issues. So that
I think Australia is planning on doing that even once we go renewable.
Yeah, we're
just have
always going to
gas.
have something as a just in case. But yeah, that's my update on that, which is important. So just something that we can really fight. And good luck to any German out there that's fighting for this. I am 100% behind you to try to reverse this decision.
All right, the last of our headlines. Iceland is urged to ban blood farms that extract hormone from pregnant horses.
What? I never knew that this was...
Neither did I.
Okay. Please explain.
So, pregnant mare serum gonadotropin,
Yeah.
we'll go with, PMSG
Okay.
is the hormone.
Mm-hmm.
It's extracted from pregnant horses in Iceland during the summer at blood farms
They're actually called blood farms. Wow. Okay.
before being converted into powder and shipped around the world. The hormone is used by farmers, mostly in the UK and Europe, to increase reproduction in pigs, cows, and other female farm animals. Didn't know this was a thing, like, at all. It sounds horrid.
Sounds really, really bad. Yeah.
So, upon my reading, I found someone that actually went and visited one of these blood farms.
Okay.
So, a visit to the blood farm, the farm, saw broken restraint boxes and enclosures covered in bite marks, which they claimed, like horse experts claimed, that this was a sign of anxious horses.
Yep.
There's undercover footage from the farms taken by animal welfare campaigners.
Yep.
Also showed distressed horses being hit before the blood was being drawn using a large cannula inserted in their jugular vein. It doesn't sound pleasant
No.
at all.
Damn.
So, I feel like there could be an easier, better way of doing this. Experts have also expressed concerns about the amount of blood taken from the horses. The pharmaceutical company Izteca, which owns or subcontracts the farms, said 5 litres of blood are taken from pregnant mares every week for 8 consecutive weeks, which is around 4 times the amount specified on international guidelines. 4 times.
Is this a legal practice?
Well, that part of it obviously is,
Yeah.
considering they're not going by the guidelines, but no, this is legal. This is completely legal.
Okay. Wow.
The European Commission has said that it was seriously concerned about the treatment of horses farmed for blood, while the European Parliament has called for imports of the hormone to be banned. Support of the ban is also growing within Iceland. Mm-hmm. So this is good news in the sense that a lot of the Icelandic people didn't actually know this was a thing until like late last year.
That's insane. How do you not know?
But it's been happening for about 40 years.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
crazy.
And so is there, in your research, I don't know if you found like an alternative to this product?
No.
Okay.
Not sure.
But
also, you're pumping hormones into farm animals so they can reproduce more. Just let it be natural.
Yeah.
Like, it's already a horrific experience for them. You're taking away their children.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're doing it for cows, for the dairy industry.
Yep.
Just let it happen.
Yeah.
It's horrific on all senses of the matter.
Yeah.
This is not normal to be going into pigs.
This is stories like these make me really, really excited for the future of cell meat.
Yes.
Something that is...
This will reduce completely.
It will take... What an inefficient system that you have to kill and cull and torture an animal just to make another animal reproduce so you can torture that animal.
And obviously these horses are being artificially inseminated as
themselves,
well.
Yeah.
Because they're only producing this hormone when they are pregnant. Mm-hmm. So it's just a horrific there's about just over 5,000 horses in Iceland that are experiencing this.
Yeah.
So it's huge. It's about 120 farms.
Yeah, that's really frustrating. But again, the only solution I see to this is if we start moving towards cellular agriculture and start to train these farmers who run these farms on something else.
Yeah.
Anything else, because I don't think any sicko would enjoy doing that.
No.
But I feel like in Iceland, I'm thinking this rural, remote town, or it's an industrialized process that is just not pleasant. So it's time to retrain these workers and move forward towards a greener solution.
Definitely. But I'm really glad that the the EU are behind the banning because they've seen how horrible it is. So
100%.
All right. Well,
Awesome.
I think that's it for me. And you're going to give us our deep dive.
Yeah, that's it. We'll see you at the end of the episode where we can just talk about
the good news stuff.
Back for the good news stories to talk a little bit about that. But we'll be heading into this insane topic in what I would call we're on the brink of a mass food extinction. Since the Second World War and the Industrial Revolution, we've created a food system that was built on fear and greed. A food system that is inefficient and fragile. In the world of finance, the first piece of advice you get is diversify your assets. It's not different in this world of agriculture. Author and researcher Dan Saladino sums it up pretty nicely. Since the dawn of agriculture, roughly 12,000 years ago, humans have domesticated around 6,000 plant species for food. But now, just 9 provide the bulk of our calories. And 4 of these, wheat, corn, rice, and soy, supply roughly 2/3 of that intake. The bottleneck doesn't end there. Despite the huge genetic variation found within these crops, just a few varieties of each are selected to be grown in vast monocultures. End quote. So if we look at those 4 main crops that we just mentioned before, we have to make sure that they're safe to consume for decades and centuries to come, since we rely so heavily on that. And so a team of scientists set out to find out just that. Their paper was published in PNAS, and they found that if we do not change the way we do things, each degree of Celsius increase in global mean temperature would on average reduce annual production of wheat by 6%, rice by 3.2%, maize by 7.4%, and soybean by 3.1%. That is horrific news. Now, what if I told you one of the most consumed drinks in our world is under threat? And this will literally scare a lot of you, and it definitely scared me. The average Australian and Brit drinks about 2 cups of coffee a day. Americans take it to 3. Some studies even show that Germans drink more coffee than beer and water. Now, there are 124 species of coffee, but we rely on just 2 for 99% of our coffee consumption. Now, it doesn't take a scientist to figure out that that is really, really not sustainable. 2 varieties for almost all of our consumption, and they are Arabica and Robusta, making up 56% and 43% of global production, respectively. Now, Arabica originates from Ethiopia and South Sudan. It's a cool tropical plant with a mean annual temperature requirement of around 19 degrees Celsius. It is vulnerable to increasing global temperatures and a disease called the coffee leaf rust. It's a fungal disease which, on a side note, had an epidemic in 2012 that devastated coffee farms through Latin America, causing more than $3 billion in damage and lost income. Now, Robusta, on the other hand, fares slightly better. The species grow at a low elevation across much of wet tropical Africa. They require a mean annual temperature of 23 degrees Celsius, so 4 degrees higher than Arabica, and it is resistant to certain strains of that coffee leaf rust. But Robusta falls short in its flavor, and it's widely regarded as inferior to Arabica. So that's why most people don't like instant coffee, because that's where Robusta is mainly used. Now, let's look at those above stats for a moment. 99% of our consumption comes from two plants, both of which are really picky and fussy about where they grow and the temperature. 125 million people worldwide depend on coffee for their livelihoods. So, what are the risks here if we were to think about it? All right, one example is that the Colombian mountain region, where coffee is grown, is warming by 0.3 degrees Celsius or 0.5 degrees Fahrenheit per decade. So according to a study published in April last year by Peter Baker and a team of scientists, the number of hours of sunlight has also declined by 19% since the middle of last century due to increasing cloud cover, and there's no longer enough sun to sustain high levels of coffee production in some areas. In fact, when surveying farmers, their coffee production annually can vary up to 40%. That's huge for someone's livelihood. Imagine one year you're earning $100,000 to make it easy with math. Next year it's $60,000. And you have no stability at all. Now, obviously I used 100,000, but these coffee farmers, they're generally small to medium-sized agribusinesses, so it's much less for them. So this can mean literally make it or break it. Now, something I learned about that I'm very impressed by is a term called perennial crops. Now, for those who don't know what perennial crops are, that's okay. This is a relatively new technology, and for those that do, I'm impressed. Now, this is going to blow some people's minds. A perennial crop acts like any other crop with one simple exception that changes the whole game. Unlike annual crop harvests, they don't need to be replanted each year. After harvest, they automatically grow back. Now, the Soviet Union first attempted this with wheat, but had limited success. But as technology has grown, labs around the world are making huge strides here. What are the benefits? Well, there's no soil erosion. They're water efficient because their roots are deeper. The nutrient cycle is more efficient because they use their roots to get those nutrients. It's not just about the supplements that the farmers are giving them. And of course, carbon sequestration, because they can keep those mature roots working non-stop on eating away at that carbon to help grow themselves. So that all sounds well and good, but what does that mean in the real world? Remember how I mentioned that coffee leaf rust that caused $3 billion in damage? Well, it actually didn't affect Colombia as bad as El Salvador. And that's because Cafe, who are essentially the NASA for coffee, developed a strain of Arabica called Castillo. Now, this made 3/4 of the trees in Colombia leaf rust resistant. Instead of providing seeds of just one genotype, each bag that Cafe sells to coffee farmers at cost contains seeds of 35 different lines, ensuring that some plants will manage to thrive whatever environmental conditions might arise. So, looking at it today, land needed for coffee in Colombia has shrunk by a fifth, but coffee production has remained roughly the same since the 1990s. Now, this is because of the increased efficiencies in the production process, such as you can now plant more trees per acre without the high risk of this disease just wiping everything out, but also biological controls for certain insects and agronomic innovations. So this is actually really, really good news. So before, when we're talking about one bean just having 56% of global production, it is the one bean, but there's 35 different genomic expressions that are having here. So this is really, really important. But this is relevant across the board. Other countries fall into different scenarios. So climate change will reduce the global area suitable for coffee by around 50% across emission scenarios. Now, this is according to a report published in the Journal of Climatic Change in 2015. So this is just an example in Colombia, where we're talking about this different strain. Every country has a different climate, a different humidity, and different winds that control all these outcomes. So we've covered that most of our coffee comes from two sources. There are diseases and climate challenges that threaten this, but we've got techniques such as perennial crops to tackle this. There is one other solution, and this is very, very cool. There is a new bean that's also an old bean, rediscovered in the wild in 2018 after years of searching, and it has the unique combination of tolerance to high temperatures and has a superior flavor. It's called Coffea stenophylla, a rare and threatened species from West Africa. Results from an independent panel of experts that did a tasting show that the flavor of stenophylla is like high-end Arabica. But the upside is that it can grow in temperatures 1.9 degrees Celsius higher than that of Robusta and 6.2 degrees higher than that of Arabica. So currently it's on the IUCN Red List of Threatened Species as vulnerable. But measures are required to protect the future of this species in the wild. Now, once this bean has been studied more and populations start to bounce back, there is potential in this in regards to not letting the coffee population go extinct, but also it could help support financially some of the world's poorest farmers to grow a crop that is traded at a healthy margin. Now, this is something that we're banking on. Imagine that something happens and this stenophylla doesn't really require, it's not scaled yet. So now with climate change, as it currently stands with the technologies that are available, there is a risk that because we rely on two beans and the climate is rising, that both beans could go extinct, or even worse, we just have to have instant coffee. And for any coffee snobs out there, that is just unacceptable. So if you weren't fighting for climate change before, you are now. Now, if you don't like coffee, and ignoring the fact that 125 million people could lose their jobs, you couldn't care less about the above. Now, this next one might frighten you. It might be what takes you over the edge. Chocolate is in danger. Now, so much so that the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, aka NOAA, you might have heard of it in a lot of different references to NOAA in the science literature, they have claimed that chocolate will be extinct by 2050. Now, I say chocolate, but I mean cacao beans. So much like coffee, cacao is a pretty fussy crop. Cacao can only grow within 20 degrees north and south of the equator, and they need fairly uniform temperatures, high humidity, abundant rain, and nutrient-rich soil, and of course, protection from wind. Now, that's why rainforests are their best friends. The Ivory Coast and Ghana produce over half of the world's cacao. Some estimates say up to 70%. Now, this is a problem, obviously, because in the IPCC's report, when we follow the business as usual scenario, which is currently where we're going, those countries will experience a 2.1 degrees Celsius rise by 2050, which will drastically reduce the places cacao will be able to grow. Now, I will mention something for the nerds like me that might want to know science a little bit better, and you don't need to remember the actual purpose for this. I just wanted to mention it to be fair to people who are interested. Now, this isn't because cacao can't grow in the heat, because in Malaysia, cacao continues to grow in hotter temperatures, but it's different in West Africa, and it's because of the rain, a process called evapotranspiration. This is the process in which water evaporates from leaves during photosynthesis. So in the case of West Africa, the rise in temperature will not be accompanied by an increase in rain, unlike places such as Malaysia. For transparency's sake, I will mention that only 89.5% of the cropland will be less suitable to grow cacao by 2050. And a nice little portion, 10.5%, will actually increase in suitability. And this is due to things like mountain ranges and so forth. So when we're talking about coffee, we mentioned a few different solutions. Some included the development of different strains of trees. We also looked at doing that here. And we can invest more into the research of developing breeds that have superior drought resistance, for example. A more simpler approach, we could also give trees some shade. So we go out in the sun, we get burnt. Cacao trees don't like it either. Communities and farmers could replant tall rainforest-like trees that provide shade for the small cacao trees. In turn, this would decrease both the temperature and evapotranspiration and increase protection from wind and soil erosion. We definitely don't want to stop growing cacao. For one, I love chocolate. I don't know about you, but I love it. And then for a second point, a study conducted in southern Cameroon in 2009 found that cacao forests in the region store on average 243 metric tons per hectare, which is about 2.5 acres. Now, in 2011 to 2015, the World Bank reported that US citizens released about 17 metric tons of carbon dioxide per person per year. So obviously, the conclusion we can come from this is growing and eating more chocolate will stop climate change, right? Well, we can believe that, I suppose, in a lot of ways, but we can never rely on one thing. Of course, biodiversity is extremely important, but this food or this bean isn't just great for eating. I just wanted to really point out the fact that it can help in our journey to mitigate climate change because it sequesters a lot of carbon. So I've mentioned 2 bean crops, but what about an animal that humans used to consume? I'm sure most people would be familiar with what a passenger pigeon is, whether you saw it in a movie or what have you. They were a very common animal that was used as one of the main protein sources from the 1770s up to about the 1890s. They were baked, roasted, turned into stew. They were pretty much the chickens of the era because they were so cheap and just everywhere. In fact, just speaking of chickens, during that time, farmers would mainly just use chickens for their eggs and, on the odd occasion they might eat the bird, but it wasn't the most common thing. Pigeons were all the rage. And then boom, extinct. The passenger pigeon went extinct. So the reason I think this is crucial to understand is that there are a group of animals that I think are on the road. So if anyone's watched Seaspiracy, tuna and cod are a great example. Their numbers are dwindling by the day. And this is a great example of what happens when we rely on a particular food group heavily to an unhealthy degree. And this also means that it is not enough for humans to love the food to not let it go extinct. A lot of humans, I bet, would love passenger pigeon. They were probably, if there were Facebook at the time, there'd be Facebook groups dedicated to recipes on just pigeons. But that didn't stop the human population from absolute decimating the population. There are plenty more examples I could cover, and there's different foods, there's types of pears and apples. In fact, there's a story that the average UK Brit could eat a different apple a day for 4 years and not even run out of different species of apple. But yet we rely on 5 to 10 apples. So there's lots of different stories that we can talk about and other foods that are on the way to extinction. One example that I won't go into is honey. That is definitely high on the list. Now we need bees, but their populations seem to be dwindling again. So I'll leave all the resources for this research in the show notes below. I plan on getting a panel of experts on the show to talk about this a lot deeper because it is a problem that has really ignited a certain flame in me. I'm very interested in this issue because for anyone who really understands the caliber of what we're talking about here, we're talking about an extinction of a food group. That means never again will this food be available. Now there's scientists out there trying to bring back the woolly mammoth, but we shouldn't rely on those technologies. What if it doesn't work and then we've lost this beautiful food group that had a place in the ecosystem for both humans and non-human animals alike? There are a list of many, many species that are set to go extinct. So look, the tips in this for me is let's focus on biodiversity. In the future, this means that you might have a different banana every time you go to the shops. Bananas aren't even something I touched on, but the Cavendish banana is in high risk of a disease called Panama. The Panama disease has gone 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4 now affects the Cavendish banana and is plaguing every single continent besides Antarctica, obviously. Every single continent is losing thousands of crops of bananas from this one disease because we rely almost all of our banana production on this one type of banana. We didn't learn our lesson with Panama 1 when we all ate Gros Michel bananas, or I'm not sure how to pronounce that. It's Grosmichel, Gros Michel. I'm not sure what that may be. but we relied on one banana, and then all of a sudden it had a Panama disease, and then we created the Cavendish trend, and it is happening all again. So I implore everyone to try different foods, explore that biodiversity, buy different apples, buy apples that are damaged, buy different pears, melons, vegetables, tubers, roots, all these foods that are so different that can help maybe invigorate your passions in the kitchen. If you're trying new flavors, new textures, it feels different in your mouth, you feel different afterwards, the energy, the micronutrients are different, and more than anything, you are supporting a biodiverse future where humans and non-human animals alike can help share this planet in a way that is symbiotic with every creature, trees, plants, fungus, doesn't matter. But biodiversity is key. Much like we say, you got to eat 30 different plants a week. That doesn't just help your body and your gut microbiome, but the biome of the whole planet. So I implore everyone to explore different foods that you wouldn't likely try. And this is something we're definitely going to dive into a lot more in the future. And I implore you to read a little bit more. A book that I will be reading in this year, once I get up to it, is a book called Eating to Extinction. It's by Dan Saladino, who I mentioned earlier, who really brought about, I think, was one of the pioneers around this issue and gave it a lot of publicity. So more power to him if you guys want to read more about that. But with that being said, that is a deep dive finished, and we're going to move on to the sustainability tip. So this is something I thought I've been thinking a lot about recently, actually. And let me give you an example. You just watch a documentary on plastic. You're passionate, overwhelmed, and excited for society to change. And the next day, you see dozens of people get plastic takeaway cups, litter in the grass on your way to work, etc., etc. So my tip for you to handle all of this is to find your why as to why you're an environmentalist. So you have the knowledge, the passion, and the know-how on how to stick to this long term, and so you don't get anxious and just give up and screw it, I'll just become part of the problem because I don't know how to address it and I just feel overwhelmed. I thought it was a unique tip, and I think you can definitely add some value here, Sharna, as I know you can talk a lot more about values and how to extenuate that for ourselves. But questions I would implore people to ask on this is, why are you a vegan? Why do you want to be an environmentalist? Why do you want to follow a plant-based diet? And knowing that will help you stay in the long term, so you don't see all these plastics just like, screw it, I'm just going to get a takeaway cup. And,
no one else is caring, why should I?
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on how we can really stick to those values in the long term?
I think just it gets really overwhelming. You know, if someone that's listening or watching isn't vegan but wants to help, just try and be 1% better every day, whatever that looks like to you. Just 1%. Don't get overwhelmed. Don't look at the big picture. Just look at 1% better every day. Because it is really overwhelming sometimes and scary. And you sometimes do think, oh, you know, I'm just one person. I can't save all of the animals in the world. I'm not going to be able to change anyone's mind about using coffee cups every day, single-use plastic. Just think 1%. Just focus on yourself, and yeah.
I love that. Because I think, you know, thinking what you can do every day is incredible. And if you are one of those people, like Sharna mentioned, that you are overwhelmed at the big picture, think of your big picture. So if you want to be 1% better every day, what does that mean for you over 1 year or 10 years? Like if knowing what we know now, if we had that knowledge 5 years ago, I don't even know where we would be today. You can get so much knowledge after watching just one documentary. And I think just solidifying that why, knowing that why, like if you see someone little on the street just saying, you know, it's up to me to be that example, I think that'll really take that overwhelm and calm yourself. Because I know, you know, we can get into some discussions and it can get heated with people who disagree with you, who have a different viewpoint. And it's something that I emailed out for the monthly paradigm. Sean, you would have received that. I'm not sure if you read it yet.
I haven't.
It was about how to talk to people who disagree with you on climate change. And I got those tips from How to Win Friends and Influence People. But the note I also wanted to add on this conversation, I know you and I both love Simon Sinek and the work he does. And in his book, Find Your Why, which is something...
Start with why.
Start with why, sorry. He probably has another one that's called Find Your Why. Start with why. He talks about this golden circle concept, which has really stuck with me since I've read it, because it's something that you can do with any part of your life. And this will tie back to the sustainability tip, I promise. But
stay with us.
on the very inside of the circle, if you picture 3 circles, on the very inside is your why. So your purpose. What is your cause? What do you believe? And so in this case, I believe plastic should be, or single-use plastic in this case should be
abolished.
Correct. So how is the next circle? Your process. So specific actions taken to realize your why. So for you, it could be, don't contribute to the problem. Don't purchase that plastic. Start purchasing that reusable material. And the what of what you do is just the actual action of doing that. Now, in no part of that process does it mean go ridicule people who make that difference. Go outside of what you can control. And that's where a lot of environmentalists go wrong. And I fall into that trap. So I know from experience, it's not the way to go.
It's about having a gentle discussion with somebody and just raising awareness, really, isn't it? Just, hey, have you thought about getting a coffee cup that's reusable and drinking out of that every day instead of contributing to how many coffee cups every day in Melbourne? Melbourne's ridiculous. 3
a day. The average Australian, and I dived into it in my deep dive, which you weren't there for, but we're looking at about 3 coffees a day. The average Australian has anywhere between 2 and 3 a day. So around 14 a week to 16 a week, depending on the person.
Imagine
same with
all
Americans.
of them being single-use cups.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking.
So it's just a gentle nudge or giving people the benefit of the doubt. Have you thought about this? And then they can go, oh, I do have one, but I've left it at home. Cool, maybe you should remember it tomorrow. But, not an attacking way. Another way to really help with this is Plastic Free July, which we've mentioned already that we're taking part in. It's such a cool way to just get your awareness around it for the next 31 days. I think that July has 31 days. So just, I became vegan after Veganuary.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a small step to help you in the right direction.
100%. But with that being said, let's get into our good news stories.
Woohoo, take it away.
The newest air capture and storage facility has started construction. So, it's called Mammoth. It's located in Iceland, and the plant will have a nominal CO2 capture capacity of 36,000 tonnes per year. So it's built and run by Climateworks, which you might be familiar with, listeners of the show might be familiar with. They've got another carbon and capture build that's called Orca.
I was trying to think of what it was called, but yes, that's in Denmark, is it?
I think it's also in Iceland.
Oh, okay.
But it could be in Denmark. It's that region of the world. I forgot to brush up on my Orca knowledge.
Sorry.
But Mammoth has an order of magnitude more capture and storage capacity. Now, what that means, it means power of 10. So
10 orcas.
10 orcas.
Wow.
Up to 10 orcas. So huge upgrade. And it's powered by 100% geothermal energy from another company that's local in Iceland, which is incredible. It's not just using fossil fuels to then capture that carbon back to that company. It's a fully cyclic and beautifully renewable system. And so, for example, for our Asian trip, we could choose to offset our carbon using this new Mammoth protocol. We could donate to help the construction, which costs around $500,000, I believe. No. I think it's more like 500 million.
Yeah,
something 500.
Right.
Yeah. So, or we could help our friends out at Half Cut to Buy Daintree. But it is an awesome new technology. And to go from Orca's not that old. It's a few years old. And now we've got 10 times more carbon and capture storage available.
Look at the technology in that amount of time. That's phenomenal.
100% agree. On our next story, last month, we talked extensively about the Australian government and the huge change that we're kind of expecting to see. And there's a lot that's happened in Australia. But I wanted to give a spotlight onto another country. A country that is known for corruption, gangs, violence, and, beautiful nature and people. And it's a very vast country, and that is Colombia. I want to extend a huge congratulations to the people of Colombia as they elect Gustavo Petro, a former left-wing guerrilla fighter, in this presidential election. Now, this is a watershed moment for Latin America because Mr. Petro will be the first left-winger to lead the country.
Ever?
Wow. I believe in their history, this is the first person in the left to lead because it's a country governed by right-wing elitist parties. Now, Mr. Petro, who was previously Bogota's mayor, campaigned to expand social programs, tax the rich, and move away from an economy dependent on fossil fuels. Those are the promises that he led his campaign with. So, huge congratulations, Colombia. And that's not where the good news stops. So, with Colombia, Francia Marquez, an Afro-Colombian woman, is the region's first ever black vice president.
Wow.
So,
is she the first woman
I don't know about female. I'm assuming not. From what I read, it's just the first black vice president, which I'm really, really stoked with that result.
Yeah.
And I want to mention another few countries as well while we're at. Left wingers have won elections in Peru, Chile, and Mexico.
Look at that progression.
Huge progression. And I've got to say, climate change has got to be.
Oh, for sure. It's got to be one of the main drivers there.
It's the wave sweeping the nation. And Brazil is looking to go the same way. So an episode I've got coming out with Paloma Costa, who's in Brazil, and she's a lawyer and an activist there. We talked about that, and I'm hoping it does go that way because Brazil, we know it for the Amazon, and they've got so much other biodiversity. It's time to stop the corruption happening there.
Yeah.
So that is huge news
for the whole world. Look at the globe changing. It's great.
It's starting to feel like a decent time to be alive with that great news. We're really seeing a shift in mentality, which is awesome. Now, to finish up the episode, so if you want to connect with us more, you can head over to Instagram at plant.paradigm. You can sign up to the newsletter, the monthly paradigm, if you head to www.theplantparadigm.com. It's a pretty good newsletter, isn't it, Sharna?
It's great.
Yeah.
I love it.
So on that newsletter, I give like a debrief of the month, some tips, some sustainability, whatever. And then I look at 3 categories. So health, veganism, and the environment. And I share the top 3 things that we took away this month in that category.
And we're going to be very active on Instagram in July, August and September.
You had some great ideas on what we'll be doing.
So we're going to be showing our vegan journey through Asia because it's not always really easy to travel and eat vegan, but we're going to show you our troubles, our wins, everything.
Absolutely. Yep. Especially because a lot of people can be quite anxious with traveling. I'm excited to see what the plastic is like there. I'm excited to see culturally what they think of veganism. So you'll be helping out with the content creation there.
Yes, let's get it done.
Absolutely. To finish up, the upcoming episodes to get excited about we've got Nick Katsumpis, who is the Plant Man, Farmer Nick on Instagram. Really excited for that one. We've got Paloma Costa, like I mentioned before, an environmentalist, activist, and lawyer in Brazil. And then we've got Erica Serino, which also is a episode I'm really excited to share. She's a plastic journalist and researcher. So
a lot of knowledge in there.
A lot of knowledge in there, correct. So with that being said, thank you so much for listening and or watching the whole way through. We really appreciate you, and hi to those people on YouTube. Appreciate that you watched the whole way, and I'll see you on next week's episode.
When we're in Cambodia.
Stay happy, eat plants. Peace.